The Amazon is the green heart of the planet. For centuries, it was believed that no civilizations had ever existed beneath its canopy, only wild nature and scattered tribes. But what if we've been looking in the wrong place all this time? Today, we'll tell you about sensational archaeological discoveries that have changed our understanding of ancient human history. Invisible cities hidden beneath the jungle conceal the secrets of a lost civilization. Are you ready to peek beneath the green veil of the Amazon? For many decades, the Amazon remained a mystery to the world. The largest tropical forest on the planet seemed like an untouched corner of nature, where only wild fauna and endless trees reigned supreme. Scientists, explorers, and geographers claimed that the Amazonian forests were too humid, the soil too poor, and the conditions too harsh for complex civilizations to develop. Numerous expeditions sent into this green ocean found no signs of cities or states similar to those that flourished in other regions of the ancient world. In the imagination of many people, the Amazon became a symbol of primeval wilderness, a place where civilization had never taken root. This opinion was so deeply rooted in the scientific community that any suggestion of the existence of large settlements in these places was dismissed as science fiction or the product of romantic fantasy. Even the legends brought to Europe by the first explorers, such as Francisco de Orellana, a conquistador who crossed the entire Amazon basin in the mid-16th century, failed to shake the confidence of the academic community. Orellana told of numerous settlements along the banks of the great river, of magnificent buildings and flourishing cultures. However, his accounts were dismissed as hallucinations caused by disease, hunger, and the harsh conditions of the expedition. For centuries, the Amazon remained a blank spot on the map of ancient civilizations. Archaeologists searched for cities in Egypt, Mesopotamia, and along the Mediterranean coast, but not in the impenetrable jungles of South America. Even the indigenous peoples living in these areas today mainly led nomadic or semi-nomadic lifestyles, reinforcing the belief that large settled societies could not have existed in the past. However, as time passed, some discoveries began to raise questions. Strange mounds, mysterious structures made of earth and clay, hidden under thick tree canopies, hinted at something more. However, none of these finds were enough to change the established view. For a real revolution in archaeology, technology was needed that could literally see through the forest. And such technology finally appeared. Conjecture and speculation were replaced by hard facts, thanks to technology that ancient researchers could not even dream of. This technology is LIDAR, laser scanning capable of penetrating dense vegetation and mapping the terrain under the tree canopy. LIDAR, which stands for light detection and ranging, is a remote sensing method in which laser pulses are sent from aircraft or drones down to the Earth's surface. Most of these pulses are reflected off the tree canopy, but some still reach the ground and return. The exact height of each object is calculated based on the time it takes for the signal to return, with millimeter accuracy. The result of LIDAR's work is a digital model of the terrain from which all vegetation can be removed, as if a green veil had been lifted. It is this feature that has made the technology revolutionary for archaeology in tropical regions, where the human eye could see only endless thickets. Computer models began to reveal geometrically correct lines, rectangles, circles, and even entire road networks. The first attempts to use LIDAR to study ancient settlements were made in Central America, in the jungles of Belize and Guatemala. Researchers literally rediscovered Mayan cities hidden for centuries under the forest canopy. These successes inspired archaeologists to turn their attention to South America. It was at the beginning of the 21st century that groups of researchers from Germany, the UK, Brazil, and Bolivia began large-scale LIDAR surveys in the Amazon basin. Among the pioneers of this technology in the region were scientists such as Heiko Prumers, Eduardo Goes Neves, and José Iriarte. Their goal was not simply to verify individual strange structures spotted on the ground, but to map all of the objects hidden beneath the trees. What they discovered exceeded all expectations. LIDAR showed that many areas of the Amazon were not untouched or virgin at all. Hidden beneath the dense canopy were the remains of large settlements, roads connecting villages, defensive walls, huge platforms, and even pyramidal hills. The geometry of these structures clearly indicated a high level of social organization. These were not random clusters of huts. They were real cities. Moreover, the scale of the discoveries suggested that these were not isolated settlements, but entire networks of interconnected cities. Such infrastructure required knowledge of engineering, planning, and resource management, things that had long been considered impossible in the humid and infertile conditions of the Amazon. A new paradigm emerged. Perhaps the Amazon was not a green desert in ancient times, but a densely populated area with a developed network of cities. And each new LIDAR scanning project brought more evidence to support this hypothesis. The first results of LIDAR scanning shocked even the most cautious researchers. It turned out that in the northern part of Bolivia, in the Brazilian state of Acre, and in the territory of the modern Brazilian state of Amapá, the remains of complex engineering structures were hidden under dense tropical forests. Among the first discoveries were strange drawings on the ground, giant geometric figures known as geoglyphs. They were perfectly aligned squares, circles, and octagons formed by earthen ramparts and ditches. Some of the figures were up to 200 meters in diameter. Initially, it was believed that these structures were ritual in nature, but their true purpose remains a subject of debate. Later, archaeologists' attention was drawn to a system of roads leading from the centers of the settlements in different directions. These roads were surprisingly straight, despite the terrain. Some of them crossed tens of kilometers of forest, connecting separate settlements. Researchers noted that the roads had embankments and may have been reinforced in some places to protect against seasonal flooding. Equally important were the discoveries related to water management. In the Amazon, where excessive humidity can be as destructive as drought, the ancient inhabitants built complex canals to drain excess water. These canals had a strict geometric shape and were designed to control water flow during the rainy season. Some sections resembled artificial reservoirs or irrigation systems. The discovery of such structures completely overturned the idea of what ancient societies in tropical areas were capable of. Designing and building roads and canals required not only engineering knowledge, but also skills in collective organization. The most sensational discovery was that many settlements were arranged in networks with a clear hierarchy. A central city surrounded by small villages connected by straight roads. This indicated the existence of a complex social structure and centralized administration. The first large-scale studies revealed more than 60 such settlements in northern Bolivia. many of which were previously completely unknown. In the state of Acre, more than 300 geoglyphs were discovered, many of which were located close to each other, forming peculiar clusters. Some settlements were surrounded by several rows of ramparts and moats, indicating the presence of defensive structures. This led researchers to speculate about possible conflicts between neighboring communities or the need to protect valuable resources. According to archaeologists, the construction of such systems required the coordinated efforts of hundreds and possibly thousands of people. This in itself was evidence of a developed social organization with leaders, engineers, workers, and possibly even specialized builders. All these findings made it clear that the Amazon was inhabited in ancient times by people who created complex, organized communities that were fully adapted to the extreme conditions of the tropical climate. These were not random settlements of hunters and gatherers, but real cities with their own infrastructure, ritual architecture, and economic systems. When archaeologists began to reconstruct the appearance of the ancient cities of the Amazon, the picture was so unexpected that some scientists at first refused to believe their own eyes. Hidden beneath layers of earth and dense vegetation were entire complexes of settlements, carefully planned and built according to strict architectural principles. Each large center was not just a cluster of huts, but a multi-level system that included public squares, platforms, roads, canals, and ritual structures. In the center of the cities were elevated terraces, huge mounds of earth reaching several meters in height. These terraces apparently housed the homes of the nobility, temples, or meeting places. Researchers were particularly struck by the geometric proportions of the buildings. Many squares were perfectly square or rectangular in shape, demonstrating a knowledge of complex geometry and planning principles. Roads branched off from the centers at right angles, forming a kind of grid, a phenomenon characteristic of urban planning in much more famous civilizations, such as the Maya or the ancient cities of Mesopotamia. Between the individual centers, there were clearly marked road corridors connecting villages and cities tens of kilometers apart. These roads had embankments that protected them from seasonal river flooding and were surrounded by additional canals for water drainage in some places. One of the distinctive features of Amazonian cities was their interaction with nature. Instead of trying to change the environment, ancient builders skillfully used it. Canals not only protected settlements from flooding, but also provided access to fish resources. Artificial reservoirs could serve as both water reservoirs and fish farms. The soil around the cities was artificially enriched. Archaeologists have found traces of so-called terra preta, black earth-like soil created by ancient Amazonian peoples. This soil contained large amounts of organic matter and charcoal, making it much more fertile than the natural soils of the Amazon. The use of terra preta allowed ancient civilizations to maintain stable agriculture in conditions where it had previously been considered impossible. Ritual structures occupied a special place in the lives of the ancient Amazonians. The geoglyphs discovered in the modern states of Acre and Amapa most likely served for rituals related to the earth, water, and celestial bodies. Some of the geoglyphs are oriented toward the cardinal points, suggesting the existence of advanced astronomical knowledge. Traces of stone structures were also found, which is extremely unusual for the Amazon, where stone is rare and difficult to access. These findings indicate that the ancient builders had knowledge of working with hard materials and probably had specialized craft centers. The size of some of the cities was mind-blowing. Near the Tapajos River, archaeologists found a bunch of settlements covering tens of square kilometers. The main city, surrounded by small villages, looked like the capital of a small country. Everything, roads, squares, platforms, canals, was connected into one system. It is also important to note that Amazonian cities showed signs of sustainable development. Unlike many civilizations that depleted the environment and led to ecological disasters, the inhabitants of the Amazon, apparently, knew how to live in harmony with nature, maintaining soil fertility and managing water resources for centuries. According to researchers' estimates, the population of some centers could have reached several thousand people, and the overall population density in regions of ancient urbanization could have been comparable to that in traditional rural areas of the ancient world, such as the Indus Valley or areas along the Nile. All these discoveries indicated that in ancient times, the Amazon was not a desert, but a thriving region with a highly developed civilization that was resistant to natural challenges. These cities, hidden under the green canopy of the forest, called into question previous scientific dogmas and opened a new page in the understanding of human history. When it became clear that real cities were hidden under the canopy of the Amazon, scientists were faced with a new question. Who were these people who built such complex societies in the heart of the tropics? The answer was not as simple as one might have hoped. Due to high humidity and soil acidity, archaeological remains in the Amazon are extremely poorly preserved. Unlike in Central America, stone structures are rare here, and organic materials decompose quickly. This makes it very difficult to determine the cultural affiliation of the builders of ancient cities. Nevertheless, archaeologists have found some traces: pottery, worked stone tools, remains of dwellings, and ritual objects. Analysis of pottery has revealed a high degree of craftsmanship. The patterns on clay vessels often contained complex geometric designs, sometimes resembling motifs known to modern indigenous peoples of the Amazon basin. Many researchers believe that the builders of these cities were the ancestors of modern Indian peoples, such as the Apurinia, Diesi, Mura, and others. However, scientists emphasize that these were societies significantly different from their modern descendants. In all likelihood, the ancient Amazonians had a stable social structure and developed knowledge in agriculture, engineering, and astronomy. Some hypotheses link the construction of geoglyphs and cities to a special cultural tradition centered around ritual interaction with the landscape. These societies may have had priests or shamans who played a key role in the planning and construction of ritual structures. Radiocarbon analysis has dated many of the sites to between the 1st millennium BCE and the early centuries of the 2nd millennium CE. This means that Amazonian civilizations developed in parallel with the well-known civilizations of the ancient world, such as the Maya, the Incas, the Andean cultures, and even early European societies. It is curious that many cities were abandoned even before the arrival of Europeans in the 16th century. The reasons for this are still unknown. Possible explanations include climate change, internal conflicts, disease, or resource depletion. Some researchers have hypothesized that pandemics similar to those that destroyed other civilizations in the New World after their first contact with Europeans may have occurred. The fact remains that the civilizations of the ancient Amazon were more complex and numerous than previously thought. They left behind architectural masterpieces, water management systems, roads, and traces of advanced agriculture. Despite the disappearance of many of these cultures, their legacy lives on in the traditions, myths, and practices of the modern Amazonian peoples. These discoveries not only open up a new understanding of South America's past, but also remind us of the fragility of human societies in the face of environmental change and global catastrophes. The discovery of invisible cities beneath the Amazon canopy has challenged the traditional scientific view of the world. For centuries, researchers believed that humid tropical forests were incapable of supporting large sedentary societies. This idea was so ingrained in archaeology that any evidence to the contrary was long ignored or downplayed. The discoveries made with LIDAR have literally blown this dogma apart. It is now clear that people did not just exist in the Amazon. They built complex communities with extensive infrastructure, long-term agriculture, and developed social organization. Moreover, these societies flourished for centuries, adapting to the unique characteristics of the tropical environment. Scientists have been forced to rethink the very principle of assessing the development of ancient civilizations. Previously, stone cities, monumental structures, writing, and metal technologies were considered signs of a high level of development. Now it has become clear that civilizations can develop according to other models, through sustainable interaction with nature, agriculture, water management, and social coordination, without necessarily leaving behind stone monuments. The concept of sustainable agriculture practiced by the ancient Amazonians has attracted particular interest. The creation of terra preta, artificially enriched soil, demonstrated a deep understanding of ecosystem processes. Modern agronomists and ecologists are increasingly studying these ancient technologies in search of solutions for sustainable agriculture in the tropics. In addition, archaeologists have revised the role of forests in human history. Previously, tropical forests were perceived as natural biomes untouched by human hands. It is now clear that significant areas of the Amazon have been modified and maintained in a certain state for thousands of years. The forest we see today is partly the result of human activity. These discoveries have also called into question Eurocentric views of the development of civilizations. The history of South America turned out to be much richer and more complex than previously thought. Amazonian cultures stood alongside other great societies of antiquity, even if their achievements were expressed not in stone temples, but in sustainable, intelligently organized landscapes. Finally, changes have also affected archaeological research methods. The use of remote sensing technologies such as LIDAR has shown how likely it is that many important historical sites remain hidden underground or under forests. The Amazon has become an example of how new tools can radically change our understanding of the past. Today, archaeologists are certain that we are only at the beginning of a massive re-evaluation of the history of tropical regions. With each new scanning project, new mysteries emerge, and new evidence of how complex and diverse the societies of the ancient Amazon were. And this knowledge forces us to look differently, not only at the past, but also at the future of the relationship between humans and nature. Despite the stunning discoveries related to the invisible cities of the Amazon, scientists admit that we still know surprisingly little about them. Every new fact and every excavation raises new questions that have no clear answers yet. One of the main questions remains the population of ancient Amazonia. Early estimates were extremely modest. It was believed that no more than a few 100,000 people lived in the entire Amazon basin. However, modern calculations based on the density of settlements found and the size of agricultural systems suggest that there may have been millions of people. Some researchers cautiously estimate the population to have been between 5 and 10 million before the arrival of Europeans. Another important question concerns the structure of society. Were these cities the centers of centralized states, or were they complex networks of autonomous but interconnected communities? Differences in the architecture and layout of settlements may indicate the existence of political centers or the possibility of more flexible and horizontal models of social organization. The construction technology also remains a mystery. How exactly did the ancient inhabitants of the Amazon build giant mounds, platforms, and canals without the use of metal tools? How were large construction projects coordinated in a tropical climate with limited resources? The answers to these questions could shed light on the level of engineering skill of ancient societies. The purpose of the geoglyphs is a subject of particular debate. Some scientists believe they are cult structures associated with astronomical observations and religious rituals. Others suggest that geoglyphs may have had practical significance, such as serving as landmarks for navigation through a complex network of roads and rivers. Perhaps the truth lies somewhere between these versions, combining the sacred and the practical. There are even more ambitious hypotheses. Some researchers suggest that certain areas of the Amazon may have been centers of cultural exchange between different regions of South America long before the Incas. According to this theory, the Amazon River and its tributaries served as a kind of highway along which goods, ideas, and technologies were transported. The discoveries of recent years also pose an important philosophical question for humanity. How much do we really know about our past? The Amazon rainforest hid entire civilizations, invisible to the eye for centuries. Perhaps there are still unknown pages of history waiting to be discovered in other parts of the planet. Today, researchers look to the future with hope and anticipation. With the development of technology, with each new scan and each new expedition, we are getting closer to fully uncovering the magnificent and mysterious history of the ancient Amazon. And that means we will also better understand ourselves.